Uh, Thank you, International Forum, for promoting homeopathy to give me this opportunity. So, I would directly start with my session. My topic of discussion today is homeopathic treatment of eye diseases, which is a specialized branch of medicine. So, last time I think we had spoken about cornea and corneal related diseases. Then we spoke about an infection in the anterior chamber that's known as hypopyon and the treatment. How do we treat the patient? And also we saw a very beautiful case where there was complication and it was treated homeopathically. So today we'll start with a case which is a unique case where it has got a psychological component or the psychiatric disorder along with eye disease. So it's a multi symptomatology case which will help us to understand how we can treat multiple pathologies. So it's a case of a psychiatric emergency and paralysis of the eyeball. So this is a case. Here I have shown the photograph because the eyes have to be seen very carefully. So that's why the photograph it is only with the academic purpose and the consent of the patient has been obtained for the academic purpose. A 32 years old female. She is a chronic alcoholic or a chronic substance abuse patient. Yet presented in our hospital. So what you can see, this is the actual face of the patient. If you see closely her eyes, what is to be seen in her eyes is if she is trying to gauge on the right hand side of the field of vision, her left eye is moving inwards, but her right eye is not moving on the right side of the field of vision. So that means if we have to do a simple exercise, if I have to look on my right hand side, there is a conjugate movement of the eyeball, and I am going to look at the right side of the field of vision. Similarly, if I have to look at the left side, my both the eyeballs are moving in a conjugate fashion onto the left side. So this is what is the abnormality. And second, if you can see on my right hand side and on your left side, there is a photograph of a hand. There is a cut on her forearm. So this is a 32 years old female with known case of chronic substance abuse, alcoholism, presenting with right side eye muscle paralysis, eyeball paralysis, along with a cut on her forearm. So let us see how the entire history evolved. So we received a telephonic call by her relative where there was an alleged history of self-inflicted injury on her left forearm. So she had cut her left forearm, and this had started after she had a episode of binge drinking. Binge drinking means a large quantity of alcohol is being consumed at one moment. That's known as binge drinking. So she had a binge drinking episode, and after that episode, she had injured her own self. So when she presented to us in the hospital, she had continuous hiccups. She had a staring look, puffiness of the eye of the lids, and she was holding her breath like this. She was holding her breath continuously. So she was under alcohol influence. Because of that, she was continuously having hiccups. She had a very staring look and puffiness of the lids and holding her breath. So this is what she had presented with at the time of hospital admission. Other important thing is she was in a state of anger, maybe partly because of the alcohol influence. She was abusing, she was violent, and she was grasping at different things or objects which are around the hospital bed. She was reproaching self constantly, reproaching herself, that she's not good, she's alcoholic, and she does all these things. And plus, at the same time, she was getting violent. She had harmed herself. She was trying to harm herself, bang her hands, and she was refusing the treatment. And she was being uh, accompanied by accompanied by her relatives, and she was refusing the treatment. And she was quite impulsive, very impulsive. So partly it may be because of the alcohol influence, and partly it can be her original temperament also. Because everyone with the alcohol influence, with the binge drinking, may not get violent. Some people may go into a psychomotor retardation. They are drowsy and they don't want to talk to anyone. So these are different cases which we see when we are treating alcoholics in the hospital scenario. So on the examination, it was found that there was a CLW, contused lacerated wound on her left arm. It was 2.5 centimeter in size on her left arm. The BP was 150 by 100. So in cases where there is an alcohol indulgence, there is a adrenergic drive which is very high for the metabolism of the alcohol. So that's why you may get transient high readings in blood pressure. Then her she was tachycardic 133. Again, the reason is same because of the adrenergic drive, which is very high in such patients. Other respiratory and the per abdomen examination was normal. Her reflexes were still present. It was equal bilaterally. Pupils were dilated. And there's one important test which is known as Massivan sign, which suggests the alcohol intoxication of a level where there is a cerebral edema. So in this particular sign, what we do is we pinch the lower side of the cheek or the upper neck, and we try to see the pupillary reflex. So when you're pinching, you feel that the pupil is constricting and dilating in some time, constricting and dilating. So there is a response to this. So that's known as Massivan sign, which was negative in this patient. So here, let us summarize. 32 years female. She with an alcohol binge drinking. She reports to us with a self-inflicted injury and right eye paralysis, and she her BP and the pulse rate is little on a higher side. So this is a in short the glimpse of her presentation. So what we do in such a scenario is we also need to do a mental state examination at the time of admission. So what we do in a mental state examination is see her behavior, orientation, her appearance, her speech, and the judgment. Behavior was catatonic. She was going into one position and trying to stay in that position for few minutes. Orientation, she was disoriented because of the substance abuse or the alcohol abuse. Appearance, she was poorly groomed and dressed, and then there were hesitation cuts on her hands, alcoholic smell from the mouth. Speech was abrupt and incoherent speech, and the judgment, as you know, the alcohol depresses the intellectual ability. So judgment was poor and it was grade zero. So these are certain things we need to do in a clinical scenario so that we are actually keeping ourselves on a proper track, so that we do a proper assessment of these cases. So on clinical evaluation, what we found is that she had a diplopia since 5 days. So it is not that she developed after binge drinking. She before the binge drinking also she had some amount of diplopia since 5 days. And during examination, which we found is there was a loss of lateral rotation of the right eye, as I have already mentioned. When we are looking on the right side of the field of vision, there is conjugate movement of the eyeballs, and because of the conjugate movement of the eyeballs, the you are moving on the right side, but here the right eye was not able to turn on the right lateral rotation. So that means there is a right lateral muscle which has got involved, which is paralyzed. She had photophobia. She could not tolerate light, and she also complained of vertigo, which was better by closing the eyes. Because of the diplopia, the brain is not able to handle the signals which are being processed and in the occipital lobe, and the person feel giddy. So there is a sensory input which gets processed through the optic nerve into the occipital lobe of the cerebral cortex, and that may result into the vertigo, especially in cases where there is diplopia. So here the diagnosis which we achieved was a right abducen nerve palsy. Right abducen nerve palsy. The right abducen nerve is the nerve which supplies the right lateral rectus muscle. Right lateral rectus muscle. So this is a diagnosis, right lateral rectus muscle in a patient who is already a chronic substance abuse alcoholic, and with a self-inflicted injury that is known as hesitation cuts with an intention to harm oneself, also classified as suicidal cuts. The investigation or HB is 13.2, WBC is 8,400, ESR is on 47, and urine was showing some pus cells 12 to 14. This was a basic investigation we had sent. So there is a diagnosis on the slide: acute alcohol intoxication in a person who's already substance abuse with a suicidal attempt and the right abducens nerve palsy. So time and again, I personally feel, and we have to have a diagnosis, working diagnosis in mind, because if we know the diagnosis, we know what are the common and the characteristic symptoms. At the same time, we also know what will be the prognosis of the case, because everything in today's era is an evidence-based science. It's an evidence-based science. We cannot just treat symptomatically. We have to have an evidence. What is the investigation? What is the result of those investigations? So any disease which I treat, I often try to classify according to our homeopathic classification or Hahnemannian classification of the disease. Here it is an acute on pseudochronic. Why I say pseudochronic? Because the alcohol is an external factor, which is an exogenous factor, which has been consumed by a patient over a period of time. It leads to degeneration of the body and certain diseases. So acute on pseudochronic disease with secondary dynamic disease manifestation, which are fully developed symptoms. So to begin with, it is pseudochronic, but as and when the person continuously indulges, it starts getting converted into a miasmatic disease with a fully developed symptomatology. So it's according to aphorism number 77. So till here we are clear with the diagnosis. Till the here we are clear with the presentation. Till here we are very clear with the classification. What are we dealing with? This is a small note on suicide. Obviously, it is said that people who consume alcohol and then there is a correlation between alcohol and suicide. It has been seen that around 15% of alcoholics are prone to commit suicide. So let us understand the totality. Now the first part is over, the second part starts. We have to treat the patient. Treating a patient is important. So it's a case with a drug influence. It's a substance abuse. There is a psychological degeneration of the person, and about that she has developed a right abducens nerve palsy. So we have to consider the overall totality. This is a case which will need a proper evolutionary totality. So let us understand, she had a pleasant childhood, but there was an early loss of father. So there is a loss of father figure in her life. She has been brought up by an elder brother and mother, and both of them had pampered her a lot. But father figure is missing. Then mother, somehow she had a Bengali background. Mother got her married at an early age of 15 years. So it's like almost it's a child marriage in India. So at 15 years she got married. She had an early motherhood. She conceived, and after she conceived and delivered a child, her husband left her. Her husband left her, and last 15 years of her life, she is continuously taking care of her daughter as a single mother. As a single mother, so you understand, a pleasant childhood, but eventually there is a loss of father. Then she has been taken care by her mother and brother. Early marriage, early conception, and even the early departure from her husband, and she is a single mother, single-handedly taking care of her child. So you understand what she is going through, because we have to understand the pre-morbid personality of an individual, why a person becomes an alcoholic, why a person becomes dependent on some substance, what is the need for the person to get into alcoholism or any form of addiction. So that's the reason for her alcoholism. And during alcoholism, as I have already mentioned, she is abusive. She is abusive. She harms herself, and that's not the first time. She has been abusive all throughout since the time she's become alcoholic. Last 10, 15 years, she's been alcoholic, and that is what's been reported by her relatives. She's quite irritable, violent, and reserved with alcoholism and even without alcoholism. So, in fact, there is a neuropsychiatric disorder which develops because of the chronic substance abuse and the person's personality disintegration happens. That's why if a person is alcoholic, the not only that person suffers, the entire family suffers around that person, because there is a lot of repercussion on self and the environment, and that's how the entire personality evolves and the environment evolves. She had this celibacy component for 15 years. She was deprived of her active sexual life last 15 years because husband had left her. Multiple suicidal attempts has been made by her, as seen from her hand. You see one raw wound, but you see the scar around it. So one raw wound is maybe a current wound, but multiple scarring is actually nothing, but it's an indication that she has attempted such such type of episodes or such types of suicidal attempts earlier also. So there is a lot of grief in a person, in a lady who's been a single mother. She's trying to take care of her grief by getting addicted to an alcohol, but it bounce backs, and then she gets all this self-harming episodes. She becomes violent, and she is completely, reserved. When she's in a conscious state, she is completely reserved. She doesn't share anything. So you have a physical manifestation of alcohol, seeing right eye, right lateral rectus muscle palsy, right abducens nerve palsy, diplopia, photophobia, vertigo, which is better by closing the eyes. And what more we found is she has dreams of being pursued by enemies, and she's just running out of danger. She feels that she's been pursued by enemies and she has to run from those enemies. So if you understand psychologically our psychodynamics, the defenses which has been adopted in this particular case is there's a lot of repression of emotion, suppression of emotion, and often somatization, which is being seen in this case. She has craving for alcohol, and she has craving for spicy, and she is a chili patient. If I understand miasmatically, it's a psychosyphilitic miasm. There is a lot of aggression, there is a lot of suppression, and there is a violence which has been hidden. So it is a travel from a psychotic to a syphilitic miasm, where there is an indulgence into a alcohol and any type of addictions. So let us understand why she became alcoholic, because we have to understand the psychodynamic phenomena. The contributing factor in this particular lady's life, if you understand sensitively, I've already mentioned early marriage, early motherhood, early separation. There is a personally missing partner in her life. She has got at a very early age, at 15, 16, where kids are studying. She had to take responsibility of her daughter. There is a prolonged celibacy phase, and that results inside with all this turmoil. There is a compulsive anxiety which develops in an individual to compensate with all this what is happening in the life. So because of this compulsive anxiety, there is a state where there's a depression and anxious phase. There is an indulgence into the substance, and she lands up becoming an alcoholic. So any time, in any case, if there is a constant dependency on a particular substance and that consumption happens, whether it is alcohol or whether it is tobacco or whether it is smoking or whether it is chewing gum or anything, any type of drugs, there is a possibility that this is a mechanism which has been adopted to get rid of the constant anxiety through the stage of oral fixation. Oral fixation, as it is seen in children, in kids, usually when the children first response when there is a cry, or when there is a cry of the child, or there is a they startle. If the mother delicately puts the child onto the breast, the first sense of security is achieved by putting the breast into child's mouth. So that is how Freudian theory is, and Freudian theory has been generalized, where there is a stage of oral fixation in individuals who are addictive. They constantly keep on chewing, keep on drinking, so that they get that sense of security, sense of relief, and sense of relief from anxiety. That's known as stage of oral fixation of in according to Freudian theory in this particular case. So ego differences which she is trying to balance is she's repressing her actuality in her dreams. Her entire environment is a threat, and she is actually repressing, which has been reflected in form of dreams that she is being pursued by enemies. It's a paranoid dream. It's a paranoid dream. It's a dream which is leading to insecurity, which is leading to lot of threat. So, and see, imagine all this factor. There's anxiety, there is frustration, and she is a person who's suppressing and repressing. So the anger which has to move in a forward direction, it's going inside. There is an introjection of the anger, and the anger, if it is introjected, is going to self-destroy. It is going to lead to suicidal attempt. So she is going into a suicidal attempt phenomena where she's destroying her own self. So this is a complete picture of how a personality evolved, how the personality evolved till a point and it got started breaking down, breaking down, breaking down, and how the various factors contributed into her what she is today. So now if we interpret her dreams, so now we have moved on where we have understood her actuality, we have understood a psychodynamic phenomena, we understood there is repression, anxiety, suppression, and there is introjection of the anger where she is harming herself. So what is important in this particular thing, it's a very beautiful thing that when you interpret the dream, her repressed emotions and feelings are expressed in a subconscious level where she has a dream of being pursued by enemies. Enemies, if you understand, enemy is what? Enemy is nothing. It's a symbolic representation of any form of threat in life. Okay, any form of threat in her life, and in her life, if you understand very closely, her realities, her her realities are the biggest threat, and insecurity. Husband who has abandoned her is the threat, is the reality, and she is running out of this reality to protect herself. So so there is a threat. She is running from that threat, but contrary to her belief, one hand she has that dream of pursued by enemy and trying to escape or survive, and other hand she is harming her own self. These two things are contrary. If I am scared, if I am under threat, I will not try to harm myself. Okay, I will try to protect myself. So one hand at subconscious, she has got a dream of being pursued by enemies, and the other hand she has got actual behavior where she's harming her own self. So this subconscious and the conscious mind, there is a split that's known as contrary behavior. Contrary behavior, which has been picked up during the process of psychodynamic analysis of this case. So this is a very important entry point in the case. So when we say contrary, the first remedy which comes to mind is Ignatia, whether we should give her Ignatia. So let us now put all the pieces, all the puzzle pieces together and understand this. As a causation, if you take, there is grief, there is celibacy, there is alcohol, there is a subconscious where she has dreams of pursued by enemies, there is vertigo physical level, and in the eyes she has got paralysis of eye muscles, right abduction nerve. So this is actually the picture, and let us put it into repertorization. So if you put alcoholism, ailments from celibacy, vertigo on closing the eyes, amelioration, and paralysis of the muscles of the eyeball, the remedies which are coming up is conium, alumina, gelsemium, phosphorus, causticum, aconite, sepia, nux. So these are remedies which are coming up. Let us go a step further and understand which are the drugs which cover her dream, because dream is a characteristic expression of her suppressed and repressed emotions. So we have to understand her dreams and her conduct which is contrary to her dream. So if you take these two symptoms separately, mind contrary and dream pursued by enemies, the remedy which is coming up is only one remedy which covers both the symptom, which is conium. So now, when we started, personally, when I started the case, I didn't know whether, I mean, Conan like remedy may come up. But as we started going through the case, and because patient is aggressive, we are just collecting the data. and we had stabilized the patient by giving her IV because of the binge drinking. What happens? The sugar levels go down. So we had started her IV fluid. We were standing around her and we were pacifying her because nothing else can be done at this stage. And in meanwhile, we collected the data. Now I started doing referencing of the drugs which were there. So, taking the source book as Allen's encyclopedia, if I study alumina, alumina has got anxiety with external heat and uneasiness. There is a depression and grief there, and anxiety is also there. Along with that, alumina has dullness of mind, and alumina has squinting of both the eyes. There is a squinting phenomenon in alumina because alumina is also one of the good paralytic remedy, and extremely obstinate patient and changeable mood, and there are confused dreams. So we have taken the points which is relevant to this particular case. Those points have been kept as a focus and differentiation has been done. Then, as contrary as behavior was coming up, we thought of also differentiating Ignatia. Ignatia has got anxiety as if she has created a crime. There is, dread of every trifle. They are very anxious. They are very scared. Smallest thing they get startled and they get, dreaded of. Intoxication, alcohol intoxication is there in Ignatia, especially beer. And it is seen that after drinking beer, Ignatia may get intoxicated. As far as the eye is concerned, there is dimness of the vision on the right eye, and there is a lot of painful pressure above the eye, especially on when looking at the light. There are dreams that the whole night of full of dreams, frightful dreams. There is a lot of fears in the personality, and indifference is also seen in Ignatia. Now, the next remedy which we were eagerly waiting was Conayam. Conayam, first symptom, drunkenness, means not only alcoholic beyond alcoholic, means drunkenness is a full certified alcoholic. Drunkard, when we say drunkard, means is a chronic alcoholic. And slightest spirituous liquor or drink intoxicates him. So intoxication is easy in Konayam. And anxious dreams full of threatening dangers. Okay. Double vision. See, our patient had diplopia. This from reference from Ellen, it has been mentioned. It has got double vision for several minutes. And very important, there is absence of the action of the muscles which are supplied by fourth and sixth pair of nerves. So right now, the nerve which we are talking about is abducent nerve, which is the sixth pair of nerve. So I was amazed and surprised that this reference is given in Allen's encyclopedia, because when we are treating, we don't reach that book, but somehow we started referencing and we got it now because of the a lot of softwares. It is easy to find. So we found that there is absence of actions of the muscles supplied by fourth and sixth pair of nerve, which was very amazing, which we found. There is confusion of mind, weak memory, anxiety, frequent thoughts of death, and hypochondriac behavior and depression and indifference is there in Conan. So I think alcohol, drunkenness, anxious dreams, threatening dreams, and paralysis, at least 4 points are matching in this. Other remedies which we were reading, the Conan which we were reading from other source book, Kane mentions that it is a remedy for a widow and widowers who have suddenly been deprived of sexual relations and they are filled with grief. Konam has got this celibacy component also with their widowers and the person who has suffered from grief, and there is paralysis of the muscles of the eye. And Fatak mentions that easily intoxicated was alcohol, and there is hypochondriasis from sexual abstinence, and it affects the nerves and the muscles, causing incoordination and paralysis. Clark's Materia Medica, there is suppression of the sexual instinct, which is mentioned by Clark, and it is diplopia with photophobia. And dreams of danger. Clark mentions there is dreams of danger and threat. So now it is a long process which almost took 2.5 hours for us, stabilizing a patient. But our objective is that we have to treat the serious effects of alcohol, which is there on our physical and also on our mental state. Meanwhile, we stabilize the patient by giving dextrose and with thiamine and multivitamins, so that she doesn't land up with subacute combined degeneration of spine, which is usually seen in alcoholics. They land up with ataxia and all. So we were supporting her by from that angle, and in this due process, we got beautifully, entire picture getting fit into Conam as a drug. So now, looking at the start of the treatment, her eyes, if you look into her eyes, the right eye is completely still, left eye, she's moving on the right quadrant. So at the initiation of the treatment, we started Conayam 200 potency, first dilution. First dilution is prepared by taking half glass of water, in 10 pills are put into this. We stir it and we give 2 tablespoons every 1 hourly, and it was continued for 2 days. Why 1 hourly repetition? As per 246 aphorism, 246 to 47 aphorism. According to this aphorism, the smallest dosages of the best selected homeopathic medicine may be repeated with the best, often with incredible results, at intervals of 14, 12, 10, 8, 7 days. And where there is rapidity is requisite in chronic diseases resembling cases of acute disease, at still shorter interval we can repeat. But in acute diseases, very much shorter periods, every 24, 12, 8, 4 hours, and in very, very, very acute, every hour, or up to as often as 5 minutes, as often as 5 minutes, in ever cases in proportion to more or less rapid course of the disease. Now, why I am saying this is, the only agenda is that if she has this diplopia, there is an alcohol influence. If you don't restore it on time, what is going to happen is, then the other next alternative is giving high doses of vitamins, and then unfortunately, in if there is no answer in modern medicine, they give steroids. Okay, so we don't want the steroid to be pumped into the patient. So why not give the homeopathic medicine at a frequent repetition? That's what is was my concept at the start of the treatment. At the start of the treatment. So when I this was the this was after 2 days. On the third day, if you see, there is a very, very fractional change in our eyeball movement. Still not sure, but we continued the drug. Now it is looking little better. This is every 2 hourly repetition we are giving now, little better. So this is a day 5, day 6 photograph, and now if you see day 7, day 8, the eyeball is now she can copy. This is a copying sign. We when we look uh, in downward direction, right lower quadrant. So this is a copying gesture. So now her right eye has been completely restored. So now the period of treatment is 7 to 8 days. Now if you see, after 10 days, she is completely fine. So now, if we understand from a modern medicine perspective, modern medicine, they usually start with intravenous steroids. Eventually, they start converting the patient on an oral steroid, and they start weaning the steroid. The effect which is usually seen in such patients after starting the steroid is same around 7 to 10 days, the patient starts restoring to the normal eyeball movements, or the eye muscle movements. So we are actually giving homeopathy, and we are also traveling the same distance and same pace and same time. So now, at the end of the entire case, what I learned from this case, I always share my learning, because learning is never complete. Even if you're a consultant or a student, or a stalwart in homeopathy, we have to manage emergencies and acute emergencies. Integration of different system of medicine along with homeopathy is important. Why I say so? That if you don't understand what is subacute combined degeneration of spine, or if I don't give IV fluids and patient goes into hypoglycemia, or patient goes into depletion of the vitamins, so we need to give vitamins and thiamine, so that there is no demyelination of the posterior column of the spinal cord. Second, concept of causation. I learned the best about cause in this particular case. The concept of causation in this case, alcoholism grief and celibacy is the concept of causation. Then concept of psychodynamic study, understand the problem which is beyond the ice. There is an ice breaking phenomena which we see in a particular patient, and we learn from the psychodynamics and the concept of constitutional prescribing in psychiatric disorders and as well as in eye ophthalmological disorder. What I learned is, if we have got PDF is those two symptoms which were very important symptoms in this particular case, that dreams of being pursued by enemies, or uh, and the second symptom was contrary, which was very important. So that those two symptoms which we differentiated right from the other totality, we found CONAIM emerging and the Materia Medica references from different source books. So this is what I learned from this particular case. Now, extraocular muscle paralysis case, we have sorted it off. The next important thing in ophthalmology, I usually, we often get such patients, is the lacrimal apparatus and lacrimal nasolacrimal duct cases. So the tear gland, which forms a tear and it drains to the nasolacrimal duct, which is excreted into a nasopharynx. Any blockage and infection can lead to disease formation in this particular system, and the disease which forms there is known as dacryocystitis and the abscess formation. So if you see the diagram very carefully, there is the eyeball, there is a gland, gland, and the entire tear flows in the inward direction from the nasolacrimal duct. There is a puncta duct, and there is a nasolacrimal sac, and then it drains into the nasopharynx. And if there is an obstruction here, then the pus can form, the secretion can get blocked, and the organisms can grow there, and that's known as dacryocystitis. So this is another diagram which shows one side it's showing the regular flow of the tear, and other side it is showing there's a blockage of the tear gland, and here it is the main nidus or main seat of disease. If there is a blockage, definitely the secretions are going to be retained and it is going to be super infected, and there will be infection, and that's known as dacryocystitis and abscess formation. So now we have two cases which we treated. I will not go in detail of those cases, but I will just show how homeopathy helps after we give a homeopathic remedy, which we understood as one of the similimum. So dacryocystitis with abscess formation. In this case, if you can see, there was a homeopathic treatment. Pulsatilla was given every 2 hourly, which was followed by every 1 hour. The left hand side is a actual infected dacryocystitis, and after 20 days of treatment, if you can see, her entire edema has resolved, erythema has resolved, infection is resolved, the blood crust formations have dissolved, and there is a small scar with healing of the entire infective area. So this is a case of a dacryocystitis. Another case, this is a beautiful case where Apis mellifica was given. The only symptom which she presented is she's better by cold. She was applying ice on and it was a severe sensitiveness to touch, sensitiveness to any kind of what we say draft, because draft is going to move and it is going to produce a contact with the skin, and that leads to pain. Sensitivity to pain and sensitivity to touch, and she's better by cold. So if you can see the photograph, it's a huge abscess. There is a orbital cellulitis, and there is a edema around the eye. Patient is not able to move the eyeball, and as well as patient is not able to open the eyelid. So if you see any infection in this area, especially the upper part of the face, in this area there is an infection. It's a very 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 sensitive area. It's known as the Magrane's area, and the infection can easily travel from this area. It can go into the sagittal sinuses and it can enter the brain. So that's why any infection in this area is very detrimental for the central nervous system, because it may lead to infection of the central nervous system, and there can be a possibility of brain abscess formation. So here in this case, we gave Apis mellifica 200 first dilution every 15 minutes because of this indication, sensitive to pain, throbbing and stinging pain, and better by ice or cold application. If you see on the second day after 24 hours, there was rupture of the abscess, and the pus started discharging from on the second day itself, and the pus had got drained. Pus was drained. By just wiping it, it was drained. On the third day after treatment, you can see the cellulitis is resolved. Cellulitis has resolved, and the patient was able to see and open her eyes, which was not possible earlier. Which was not possible earlier. If you can see, and now this is the picture which we can see. She has got a normal eye. There's no difference between the disease, a partly diseased eye, and now the normal one. So this is a day 5, day 6 photograph. So this shows how effectively, now here in this case, what is the modern line of treatment going to do? First of all, modern line of treatment is going to advise intravenous antibiotic. Second, they will say if it is not rupturing, we need to surgically open it up and drain. Third, they will give anything which will reduce the edema around the eye, like ceridopeptidase and all those drugs. They will give a painkiller, and all these things are given in the intravenous form, and the compressions are advised. So when we see all these things, and vis-a-vis we give a homeopathic remedy, and those remedy is able to produce the difference, and it is nothing like it. So these are two cases which is shown that how effectively we can manage a diffuse cystitis with abscess formation where the eye is next to normal. This is another case of extraocular muscle palsy. This is also a very, very important case, and this case is I think still we have time. So I can share this case.
Sir, your time is up to 9:30.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. Thank you.
I think many have many doubts, so it's better to stop before
My pleasure. My pleasure.
5 minutes. Okay.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. So this is a case of a lady who was suffering 24 years, 21 year female, and she was suffering from aortic arthritis. Aortic arthritis, it's an autoimmune vasculitis. Imagine, which has involved the renal artery, and she had developed a renal artery stenosis. So a lady who was suffering from an autoimmune inflammatory vasculitis with renal artery stenosis in a 21 years female, and this was her eye status. If you see her eye, this time in this particular case, her left eye is not working. If you see, she's trying to look on her left hand side. The left eyeball, right eyeball is moving inward, but the left eyeball is not able to move on the left lateral rotation. And the other thing which you see on the screen is on the right, uh, on the hand, right hand, you can see there is a scabies like eruption all over the hand. So autoimmune vasculitis, she has developed, maybe left abducen nerve palsy. Now again, these abducen nerve palsies are very, very, very common, especially because of some amount of substance abuse inflammation, or in this particular case, I feel it may be because of the autoimmune inflammation, and which leads to edema of the nerve, and that results and precipitates this palsy. So she had a lateral rectus muscle pain, where which was worse. Right, left eye, she had this pain, which was worse by crying, 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 and this was out of insecurity. And she had that intense threat that she will lose her boyfriend. BF means boyfriend. Skin on the level of skin, she had got itching, and constant irritation with macular eruption, and she was better by cold. So eye symptom, severe pain. She was crying and crying and crying, and the pain increased. And after that, she landed up with this left lateral rectus muscle palsy. Now, if you understand the physical journal of this lady, she had intense craving for sour. She has got, she in general feels better with cold water, and she's aggravated by sun. By nature, she is a vivacious, she's a very animated lady. childlike behavior, very childish by nature, very joyful, playful, and a bubbly, and she will keep on cracking joke. And she's very talkative, sociable, communicative, very sensitive to slightest thing. As we have seen that she had taken that thing to so much, and she was so much insecure that she landed up with left lateral rectus palsy. She is emotionally very weak and liable, and she cries when slightest of thing affects her. Insecurity and fear of losing the loved ones, and she's mesmerized about her boyfriend. She will, constantly keep on talking and narrating about my boyfriend is this and that, and she's constantly, yeah, as if completely fascinated with his thoughts. And she has got clairvoyance. She can see certain things happening, and it actually happens. She had a past history of typhoid. Miasmatically, if you consider, she is an autoimmune inflammatory disorder that is involving the vessels and along with the nerves. It falls under tuberculosyphilitic dimension. And now let us understand the totality of symptoms after we know the diagnosis: left abducens nerve palsy and scabies. The remedy which we got in this case was phosphorus. So now the totality in this case was, I'll just share the totality. First of all, she is very, very, very vivacious. She desires affection. She desires love. That was one thing which we had actually extracted out of the case. Secondly, what we found is that she has got inflammation as a seat of disease, is being the vessels, and inflammation which is involving the nerve. So if we read a bogus synoptic key in the region where there is a sphere of action and the sphere of affection, the tissue involvement is in the vessels and the nerves, which is given in phosphorus. She has desire for company, intense desire for company, and she's talkative and communicative. This is another feature which we found. And apart from that, which we got is her craving for sour, and affected by sun, and she is liking for, or she's better by cold water. So we started phosphorus 200, 3 doses per week, and then it was followed by daily dose. After a week duration, her diplopia was better, movement in the eyeball had started, and sleep had improved. She was very anxious and very, very scared of losing her boyfriend. The itching in the hand had also reduced, and the journals were better. And eventually, after a period of 2 months, eventually she was completely normal. Why am I saying 2 months? Is because this is a difficult case, because it's an autoimmune vasculitis. Even in cases from modern medicine, the steroids are started in a higher dose, and eventually, methylprednisolone or prednisolone is started in 24 milligram, 18 milligram, and then eventually they gradually come down, 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 down after a period of say 1.5 months, 2 months, and considering our vasculitis. So this was our this photograph. If you can see the lower down, the earlier one, she was not able to move her on the left lateral rotation. The down, we can see that she can turn her light. She can make her left conjugate eye movement. After treatment, her hands, all the lesions were almost healed. Only few on the verge of healing, remaining at healed. So this was about few cases where we spoke about uh, 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 first thing is the eyeball muscle paralysis. One was from a psychodynamic angle, the other was from the mind and the physical angle. Secondly, we spoke about the case which is involving there is a decrease cystitis,